Morning, everybody. We'll start shortly. Just giving a few more minutes for people to come on in. All right. So good morning. Happy Monday to everyone, or good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are around the world. I'd like to thank you guys for everyone for joining this morning. We definitely have an exciting conversation, discussion, webinar, if you will. We have a great panelist of people today here to talk to you about working within the UK and working with the Ministry of Defense. A great selection of folks from different parts of the industry, everywhere from investment organizations to government agencies working to help startups within the UK. This is webinar number 5. I guess it's the 5th webinar that we've been running. Many of you have already tuned in to previous webinars that we've done. Those were the challenge webinars that we did in the previous 2 weeks. The webinars this week focus more on how to actually do business within the countries that are part of this current accelerator. So mainly being the US and the UK. So today we're going to be focusing on the UK piece of this. And then on Wednesday, we will be doing another webinar focused on the US side as well. And we'll have a different panel, again, speaking of ways to go about setting up shop in the in the US, how to go about working with the Department of Defense. So we definitely hope to see you guys for that webinar as well on Wednesday. Again, I know most of you are registered on our website already and you're receiving all the information through there. You are able to see all the webinars that are recorded. So these webinars are recorded while they are happening. And we are able to then upload that video for people to then go back and see anything that they might have missed. So if you're not able to attend live, we definitely understand. And we'll have this video up for you to be able to go up and check it out afterwards. So reminder also that next week we will be having a Ask Me Anything type webinar. So that webinar will be more along the lines of those companies that have already registered and they're looking to submit a submission to the competition, that they can have their questions answered by folks within the DASA organization or SMC or any of the other stakeholders that are participating in this competition. So with that, I will also like to remind everyone that during this time, today for the agenda, how we're going to be working it is we're going to be presenting it in sections. And our main sections today that we're going to be covering are transition confidence, investment readiness, and international considerations. So we're going to be calling up different panelists to kind of present their topics and talk about different aspects of that, if you will. So at the end of each section, we'll have a little bit of Q&A time carved out. So if there are any particular questions from the audience that they would like to pose to the people that presented, they can. And then of course, we'll have a more open Q&A at the end in case any questions were not answered during that allotted time. So with that, I will turn it over to Captain Singleton, who will start us off and have some opening remarks.
Thanks, Brandon, and thanks everyone for joining. We are really excited about the opportunity to host this webinar and workshop today. I wanted to put some context to it, what we're doing, and wanted to emphasize how valuable this can be for companies, rising space companies around the world that are interested in accessing, the UK, US space markets and working with defense organizations. As any good, sharp, successful entrepreneur knows, having a great technology or solution isn't enough without a problem. You have to know your customer, you have to know their problem to be able to successfully sell it to them. So what we've done over the last couple of weeks is we've introduced some of our problem areas that we experience within defense, both in the UK and the US, that we believe that there are solutions out there in the commercial market that can solve them. So these are all online. But what we've also realized is that if you are a successful rising company with a great solution, you understand the problem with your customer within defense, that's also not enough. There is a path to transition and successfully deliver it. And so the purpose of these webinars and this program is to bring extra resources, expertise, mentors, and support to help those rising companies from around the world to understand what that path is so that they can successfully go there. So hopefully at the end of these webinars, we have companies that are excited to engage in, participate in this program, and some confidence that today it's never been easier to work as a startup or entrepreneur space company with the Ministry of Defense. I have personally worked with companies that were small, pre-funded with an idea that have now successfully scaled with satellites flying in space today that had defense as a strategic partner in that path. And it came through programs like this. They were able to raise capital, develop their solutions, and launch them successfully. And defense was a critical partner in that. I've also seen through another interesting company program, a company that was developing a technology outside of the UK for a satellite to do weather forecasting. They partnered with a bus manufacturer in the UK and were able to participate in a program sponsored by Satellite Applications Catapult to be able to get their first launch and put a satellite in space. So we also started to see complementary programs in the UK and outside of the UK, helping new rising space companies again get to market and be successful. So we want to bring all of these pieces together, help you understand exactly what each of those puzzle pieces are so that you can successfully get there. And we can maximize, the success of working with companies, new companies like yourself. So I'm really excited about the people that we have supporting, this video webinar workshop today. We've got from Seraphim Capital talking about, investment readiness, a critical player in the UK space market today. We've also got, that'll be joining later, Richard Holmwood from the National Security Strategic Investment Fund, talking about what they're doing to invest in and support companies raising capital for technologies that are dual use and have applications to defense and security. So you start to see that overlap. We also have Dr. Hawks from BMNT working with the Hacking for Mod program that are just experts in working with innovative students, companies in figuring out how to solve problems for defense-driven organizations. We've got Saad from the Satellite Applications Catapult. They have specific resources that can come and help companies outside the UK, space companies specifically, come into the UK. And we've also got a successful company represented here, Joe from Cryptolabs, that can actually talk about challenges he experienced and his success in kind of navigating through those to successfully work. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to let Brandon kind of moderate and help us step through the workshop today. I think we're going to start with James from Seraphim with that first topic. But again, excited about everybody who's been able to join us today. And Brandon, go ahead and take us from there.
Great, thank you so much, Jake. And as Jake was saying, you know, there's so many examples and people that we have on the line today that are here to definitely tell you the different resources that exist, should you want to pursue, you know, and try to work in the UK and work with the Ministry of Defense. You know, you're not doing it alone. You definitely have a lot of people to ping and work with. So with that, I would like to introduce James Brugger from Seraphim Capital. James, I'll hand it over to you. And if you want to just quickly just mention about yourself and then go right into your material, that would be great.
Great, thanks, thanks, Brandon, and appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak to everyone today. So just to introduce myself, I'm the founder, or one of the founders of the Seraphim Space Fund, a pioneering venture fund focused on space technology. And I'm also the founder of the Seraphim Space Camp Accelerator, which is our accelerator program that we run alongside the fund. My background is that I've spent the last 20 years working in the startup and innovation and investment ecosystem, during which time I've now started, advised, and invested in upwards of 50 businesses around the world. My role at Seraphim is to head up the investment team, and in that capacity over the last 4 years, I've now established myself as one of the most prolific investors in space tech globally. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time today talking to you about Seraphim, our model, how we operate in the UK. I'll then move on to talk a little bit more about why we believe the UK is such a fantastic place to look to build a business, before wrapping up with some insights from an investor's perspective about why the defence and government markets are more important in terms of accessing venture funding than they've ever been before. So if you just bear with me, I will endeavour to share my screen. If one of Brandon or Jake could nod to let me know that they can see everything as it should be. Great stuff. Nice that the IT's worked for once. Okay, so just to tell you a little bit more about Seraphim. So we're the world's leading specialist investor in the space tech domain. We're headquartered here in the UK, but with a global outlook. Our model is one of really looking to support businesses from inception right the way through to exit. So I've alluded to several of these elements already. So 3 key elements: venture funds, an accelerator, and an angel platform. So taking businesses right from concept and benchtop through to proof of concept, and then scale up and eventual exit. Our model is powered by smart capital. We're backed by some of the leading space corporates from Europe, Asia, and the US. And importantly, we have significant financial support from the UK government as well. Just to stress that our focus is very much on space tech, which is obviously a subset of the overall defence and aerospace market, with a particular focus being around businesses that are collecting and communicating data from above that you can see here. So just one element of this to call out, our Seraphim Space Camp Accelerator, which is highly complementary to the initiative that we're discussing today. This is VC-led, focused very much on investment readiness and driving corporate engagement. Last couple of things to note: my team, beside myself, includes 3 entrepreneurs who've scaled space businesses to billions of dollars of exit. And I think the key thing to understand in terms of our focus on space, which is space rather than defense, and this has already been alluded to, virtually every business we look at is dual use in its nature. So it has applications both in the private and commercial realm, but equally within the defense and government realm. So all told, we've supported over 50 early stage space tech businesses through these 3 initiatives. And just to help you understand what this really relates to, it's both us helping to nurture and internationalize the highest potential UK space tech companies out there, but also very importantly, helping to find best of breed international businesses and help them establish operations in the UK. So what I'm going to do is just spend a few minutes giving you a bit of a flavor of the kind of companies that we've supported, and very specifically that have relevance to the defence market, all of whom have had some sort of ongoing engagement and dialogue with the UK Ministry of Defence. So first up, Arkit. So this is a UK company that is looking to address the problem of the encryption that the entire digital economy relies upon being vulnerable to the forthcoming threat of quantum computers. So ARKit is looking to launch a UK constellation of satellites to deliver quantum secure communication. This business has had very significant levels of support from various different UK government entities, some of which I'll come on to talk about in due course. Clearly the cybersecurity applications and defense are very much paramount to that opportunity. Next up, Zona, which is a US business that we've actually brought to the UK. So the problem that they're addressing is that current GPS solutions lack the accuracy and security that are required to power our autonomous future. So what Zona is doing is looking to launch its own constellation of small sats to essentially boost GPS signals to deliver centimeter level accuracy and military grade security. This is massively relevant for both the broader defense sector, but also specifically in the UK. Some of you may have picked up that the UK government in just the last few weeks has participated in a rescue deal for OneWeb, who are launching a mega constellation of broadband satellites. And that part of that thesis from a UK perspective is looking to build on the strength that the UK has around precision navigation and timing technology. Next up, Spire. So the problem that this company is addressing is that 75% of the world comprises oceans and uninhabited areas where it's very difficult to collect data. So Spire's solution is they've launched more than 100 listening satellites collecting signals intelligence and data on the most remote parts of the world, providing near-time real tracking on everything from shipping and aircraft. So again, signals intelligence being something that the UK has particular domain expertise in. Worth noting that this business builds all of its satellites in the UK, and this is something I'll come on and talk about in a moment, of how the UK really is at the forefront of new space revolution. Okay, and then penultimately, ISI, which is enabling you to see at night and through cloud, so being able to see where others can't. Clearly, in terms of things relating to intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance within the defense sector, that has very significant applications. And then last up, a company called Leo Labs. The problem they're addressing is everything in space today is pretty much flying blind, impossible to detect the hundreds of thousands of small objects of space debris. So the solution that Leo Labs is providing is ground-based radars that provide space situational awareness of every object in orbit down to 2 centimeters in size. So space situational awareness being a key strategic area for the UK. Okay, so moving on now to talk about why we believe the UK is such a compelling place to look to build a business. So first up, and this is very space specific, but I think actually has broader applications in defense, as I'll come on and talk about. The UK has incredibly rich space heritage. It's got a thriving space sector that's one of the most developed in the world. And that includes both big established businesses like Inmarsat, Kinetic and Airbus, but also very importantly, from our perspective as a venture fund, it includes the heritage of some of the real innovators that have pioneered the small sat revolution. So the likes of SSTL, who this picture here is of 3 satellites that they built, and the likes of Clyde Space in Glasgow have really pioneered some of the massive changes that are affecting both the space sector and more broadly the defense and intel market. So the UK, as I've said, is very much at the forefront of the new space economy in terms of companies, talent, and capital. It's recognized as being a major pillar of growth for the UK economy and has significant strategic support from the UK government, which again, we believe is something that startups can bring to bear. Next up, and I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot more about this, now the UK really does have world-renowned defense and intel capabilities. Just to give you some idea of how these areas of expertise map to things that we've seen and invested in, areas where UK has real heritage like cybersecurity, signal intelligence, geospatial intelligence, position, navigation and timing. These are all areas that we see startups being able to build on. And indeed, I think as is demonstrated with this Five Eyes image, the UK can become a very strong beachhead for accessing other countries and geographies, be that other Five Eyes nations, could be NATO or even EU, despite the Brexit reduced changes that are currently underway. Looking more broadly at the UK as somewhere to start any business rather than specifically a defence or space business, the UK has by far Europe's most advanced startup ecosystem. It's a really thriving startup ecosystem where even with Brexit, these advantages are going to remain for a very long time. So the UK has twice the scale of any other European nation in terms of its startup ecosystem. A third of all of the venture funding in Europe is from the UK or into UK-based companies. And again, nearly a third of all of the European unicorns, those rare businesses that achieve $1 billion in value, are based in the UK. And I've alluded to the levels of government support that are accessible to the sort of startups that we engage with in the UK. So you can see here a whole range of different initiatives. It's a very well-developed funding network for supporting both UK companies, but also very important to note, to support inward investment into the UK, which is something that is more important than ever from the UK's perspective post-Brexit. So this sort of level of non-dilutive grant funding acts as a real multiplier to private capital. It's a really vital ingredient, and it's one that we've seen in businesses that we've backed, resulting in them accessing potentially tens of millions of pounds, which can be an absolute game changer for these businesses. So just to move on and talk about, from an investor's perspective, the importance of the defence and government markets. From a space perspective, government and defence has consistently been one of the biggest potential customers for startups, albeit perhaps historically not without its challenges of accessing that market. To put this in context, governments around the world spend more than $70 billion a year on their space programs. And indeed, from our perspective, accessing these sorts of customers is more important than it's ever been in a post-COVID world, where major macroeconomic uncertainty make it very hard for startups to penetrate the private sector and scale. So getting access to government customers provides visibility and reliability of revenues that is now absolutely essential and is increasingly becoming the bedrock of growth, and in some cases the viability of many of the businesses that we see, and is increasingly becoming the basis upon which companies are getting funded. Just to build on that a bit more, and I've alluded to investment readiness as being something that's fundamental to certainly what we do with Seraphim Space Camp. One of the critical things for being able to unlock venture funding is to have early proof points and validation. Now, that in this context is absolutely vital in terms of the role that defence and government has to play. I just want to be clear, this isn't about handouts, this is about early contracts. It's about engagement from a customer perspective with key stakeholders that are helping to demonstrate to prospective investors like Seraphim that a particular technology and product and market is viable. The UK is now following the lead that the US has set in developing initiatives to facilitate and streamline this sort of engagement, which you're going to hear about from some of the other speakers. So to wrap up, we believe that the UK is a fantastic place to look to build out any business, be that a UK business or indeed looking to internationalize and expand foreign businesses. We believe that from a defence and intel perspective, the UK and space perspective, the UK has world-class heritage and a thriving startup ecosystem. And we see the role of defence and government as being more important than it's ever been in supporting the most exciting businesses coming out of that way. Thank you very much. I'm happy to take any questions that anyone's got.
Great. Thank you, James, so much for that presentation. I think it really gives a flavor to show how much has happened within the UK in the last few years and all the exciting technology that's happening, not just in the UK, but also worldwide, and how Seraphim is definitely a big player in that space, in this space industry, if you will. I just want to remind everyone that we do have a Q&A function at the bottom of this Zoom feature, I guess you could say. So if you kind of scroll to the bottom, hover over the bottom, there's a Q&A button that you can click on, and you can pose any of the questions to our panelists there. So again, if you would like to ask them any questions, please feel free to insert it there, and we can ask that at any time during the sections. So with that, now that James has kind of given us examples of companies that have already shown successful traction and whatnot within the industry and how Seraphim is backing them, I think it'd be really good to now bring it back to Joe at Crypto Labs, so he can kind of share and also, I guess you could say, verify some of the things that James has already presented as far as investment readiness and how companies go about gaining that traction. So Joe, I'm going to hand that over to you.
Thanks, Brandon. When I was first asked to do this, I said, "Are you sure you want me to be on panel? Because I've got a mixed bag. This is not a how great it is to work with the MOD. There's some great parts and some bad parts." And they said, "Joe, go ahead." So I've been let loose. So be warned. Let me share my screen. Okay, let me know if you're able to see this.
Yep, looks good.
Okay. Okay, so I started Crypto Labs over 7 years ago, when a couple of friends and I, who were PhD in maths, quantum physics, decided to prove the concept of building a quantum random number on nothing than a mobile phone. And we believe that you don't need hundreds of thousands of pounds to be able to generate this. The phone has enough accessory tools to be able to generate this. So we took our idea to the MOD, GCHQ, we'll talk more about that in a second, and we got funded. So this is my story on how we got funded and where we are up to this point. Well, all the problems that we've encountered up until this point. So far we've raised over £4 million. We raised £2.7 million last May, led by our VC, Block Ventures. Brilliant VC for deep tech. If you want people to understand what you guys are doing on a really deep down level, I would recommend speaking to Block. But we were also funded with £1 million Innovate UK loan, as well as other angels. And Block just recently led another round of £1 million in convertible loan note ready for a Series A round. As well as raising our grant money, as well as some clients as well, some notable clients. So our main USP is that we view ourselves as a quantum random number generator company. We've started off with one patent, which has now been granted. Basically, random numbers are used to secure encryption. I think James mentioned with ARKit, it's all to do with providing quantum safe encryption, and quantum random number is just a downstream technology as part of that. But not only do I have one patent that we have, but we've in the last 8 months we've filed 3 patents, all to solve different problems, but in terms of latency for the automotive sector, in terms of reducing component parts to reduce the price of the chip, all the way to delivering what we call the million X problem. So the million X problem is that currently in the marketplace, the best you can get in terms of a QRNG chip is a chip from ID Quantic, and it's less than 1 megabits of bit rate per second. We went to our clients in the defense aerospace and they said, "Are you able to produce a terabit of bit stream per second?" I said, "Well, no. If the market is only able to generate 1 megabits, what you're asking for is a huge problem." So we kind of went back and worked on this, and we came back to our client a year after with a new patent to say, yes, we can deliver the 1 terabit of bitstream. And now we're in discussion with them to potentially do a partnership with them. And we've got 2 more patents that we're about to file in 2020. So we view ourselves as a deep tech, quantum tech, IP-rich licensing company. And of course, we're building this into an ASIC chip. Prior to that, we need to test this. We've got funding from the UK Space Agency to now encapsulate our first design so that we can start testing this both on the ground and potentially we've got offers to test this in geo and a little bit in 2022. So this is the bit that is an important part. So 7 years ago, when we first had this idea, we had the opportunity to pitch in front of GCHQ or NSCS, the National Cybersecurity Center, and these guys, the head of the body, is a guy called Ian Levy. He killed us. He absolutely destroyed us in questions and everything else. And we were in front of hundreds of people. And then at the end of the presentation, he came to us and said, "Look, guys, if you can do what you claim you can do, I want to introduce you a few people." After that, he introduced us to the MOD via the DSTL. And this is the important point here. We spent 9 months trolling, stalking the MOD. Right? We were surprised I wasn't arrested. We went to speak to them, asked them questions: what do you need? Why do you need it? And we did our proposal, and we got our first validation. This £96,000 contract, which I can honestly say is the start of Crypto Lab. Without this, there will be no Crypto Labs, because getting the validation from the MOD, getting validation from a defense organization to say your technology has a real potential impact on us, allowed us to raise money, allowed us to have additional grant money, it allows us to build a team to raise the £4 million that we got so far. So, like you can see there, the one word that I like to describe working with any defense organization is difficult, because you need to do your homework. You need to know what they want. You need to dissect what are their pain points. But here's the other problem: is that the MOD, they are a big organization. They have people in there, and we deal with, like, from banks to critical infrastructure, Department of Transport, all these people we work with, right? And we have similar problem. But here we're talking about the MOD. So I mentioned the MOD. You have people in there who do not understand the other components of their business. So I'm going to highlight one example here, and this happened in the last few months. And this is the email that we got from them after we've done our research, our asking, our questions. So, quote, "I can confidently say that our experts don't see your post-quantum computer encryption as being as much of a threat as you do, or we have things in hand to address it." This is interesting, because the head of the National Cybersecurity Center contradicted them in a white paper to say that the NSCS supports continued research into QRNGs, and they want us to propose ideas to them. And now we have DASA, who is one of the organizations, obviously, that are part of the MOD, that helps with the startup, have totally, and this is after continue asking questions and submitting proposals. They are contradicting the areas that the other part of the government are dying to work with companies like ourselves. So what do? We're a startup. we're not going to take no for an answer. So what we've done is that we've had to go to America, where we're working with US defense companies, we work with US tier ones, US subcontractors. They have highlighted the problem, taken our solution, and guess what they're doing? They're selling it back to the MOD. It is what it is. If we're going to get our products into the defense market in the UK, we're going to have to do whatever it takes. We've also had to bring in a MOD secondment, a gentleman from the Royal Artillery engineer, and said, "Can you come and just look at our technology and go back to your colleague and see, what are problems that we can potentially help to solve?" So, and it's not just the US. We're working with other European defense companies to do exactly the same thing. So really, it's like, sorry for the bad emoji there. We're here. We are yours for us, to work with. Can we please have a format, a structure where not only one person gets to view, or the questions need to be asked in the right way for us to be able to get into the sector. So what do you need to work with the MOD? Bruce Lee says it all: persistent, persistent, persistent. Carry on. Do not take no for an answer. One person at a bank does not constitute what a bank policy is on. One person at MOD does not constitute what they want. And one person from GCHQ or French DOD, no, you gotta be persistent. You gotta find the pain point in which the client needs. And once you got the pain point, you find a way to actually get to them in a coherent manner to get there. If you believe that your product has a real impact in the marketplace and they need you, don't despair. There are lots of opportunities, a lot of ways to skin a cat. But if you give up at the first no, be it from a VC, be it from clients, then you won't get very far in this sector. Thank you. Any questions? I'll be happy to ask afterward.
Great, Joe. Thank you so much for that story. Really interesting to see how far Crypto Labs has come and the path that you took into working with the UK MOD. Right now, we don't have any questions, but that's okay. I'm sure questions will come in as we progress through this particular webinar. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Chris Middleton at J-Hub. I think he will have a very interesting perspective on how the UK MOD works with particular startups and how they're looking at innovation and how Chris goes about scouting innovation on his day-to-day job. Companies like Crypto Labs, for example. So with that, Chris, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Brandon. Can I just check that you've got my slide?
Yes, I have it ready to go for you. Let me just share my screen. Let me know if you can see it.
Yeah, we're up.
Is it on full screen?
Still PowerPoint.
All right, hold on. Now my computer is giving me issues. How's that?
Still PowerPoint, I think.
Yeah, it's on PowerPoint. That's right. Full screen on
Yeah,
PowerPoint.
but it's not full screen yet. I can't see full screen.
Oh.
But anyway, I'll just give a brief introduction to me. So my name's Chris Middleton. I'm a scout at the J-Hub. The J-Hub sits within UK Strategic Command. We are the innovation cell within UK Strategic Command. For those that aren't aware, the MOD is broadly portioned up into four main operating bodies. So you've got UK Strategic Command, the Air Force, the Navy, and the Army. And UK Strategic Command is responsible for commanding operations overseas. So bringing assets from within each of the single services, so the Air Force, the Navy and the Army, and operating them. Formerly known as GFC, that acronym might be going around as Joint Forces Command, but we renamed recently into UK Strategic Command. We were set up by the previous 4-star, the commander of UK Strategic Command, and we maintain that patronage through to the current commander, General Patrick Sanders, who we report to on a quarterly basis. So if I can ask you to go to the next slide, Brandon, thank you very much. So what we do, this is our value proposition to those within the MOD and those out with the MOD. It's important to note that we don't just service UK Strategic Command. We also work alongside our colleagues in the Air Force, the Navy and the Army, because ultimately it's those individuals that are facing the problems at the front line. So we connect world-class technology and talent to defence users. So we've got a dual approach. So where I attend events like the International Space Pitch Day, Accelerator Programme, and conferences, I engage with startups, big companies, medium-sized companies. That's one side of the equation where we're looking for the interesting Swizzy tech. Then we look into the MOD because we've got this ability, because we're inside the wire. We are a team 50-50, military serving personnel like myself and civil servants. So we come from a broad background between the lot of us. The second point that we offer is that we fund and accelerate pilots of this technology. And by pilots, I don't mean those that fly planes, I mean small trials, proving the concept and ensuring that there is potentially a route for exploitation within defence. These tend to be small, bounded trials, so we know what we want to achieve at the end, we know the value that we want to derive out of it, and we know the proof of concept that we want to have. It's not the all singing, all dancing, complete solution, but when it comes to introducing technology that defence may or may not have seen before, these small proof of concept, very much like what Joe said, you need to prove it first in order to attract those that can ultimately make the bigger decisions. And that's what we do. We seek to do that through lean methodologies, agile approaches. We've got an in-house team of the core resources, like finance officers, commercial officers and integration officers. So that allows us to not have to go back to the system and then ask for our resources to be apportioned. So we have the ability to do everything in-house. Then finally, we provide access to the UK Strategic Command Innovation Subcommittee. And as I said, we report to General Patrick at this committee every quarter. And at this board and on the panel, we have all the decision makers that we need in the room. So we've got the commander himself, we've got the director of joint warfare, we've got the director of capability, the director of resources, the chief of staff, the director of commercial, and I think there's one more individual on the panel. It might spring to mind in a second, but to summarize, we've got all the key decision makers in the room, and we present them with the projects and trials that we've been running for the past 3 months. And these can range from UAVs to AI for managing projects, through to internal organizational projects seeking to upskill the workforce, all the way through to 3D printing. So we've got a broad background, and I'm currently engaged on the space front and trying to present opportunities to them in order to bring bring new things to the forefront of their minds.
Chris, real quick, sorry to interrupt.
Go on.
I'm gonna try to stop this and share it again, because people are telling me that they still don't see it in presentation mode, though it is.
Yeah,
online.
no, that's cool. I'm still speaking to the PowerPoint. It's fine.
Let's try one more time.
There we go.
Is that better?
Yeah, we're cooking on gas now. That's good.
All right.
Sweet. Yeah, so next slide, please, Brandon.
Yeah. I feel like there's a little bit of a lag. Even
Yeah,
though
no, that's
there it
fine.
goes.
Yeah, so now that I've briefly talked about where we sit and what we try and do within the more broader strategic organizational picture, more now looking at the projects and what we try to achieve. So I'll address the aims with this slide, and then the next one I'll actually talk about what we seek from projects and proposals. And I thought it'd be worth raising this point in this forum as a means of starting to help those that are going to be putting in proposals to the International Space Pitch Day, as where we would like, how we would like to exploit them further on. So knowing that you've got the International Space Pitch Day and the accelerator, we could be a potential next route for exploitation. So that's what I'll cover in the next two slides, and that's really what I want to get across. So when we approach a project, we tend to find that they either sit in one or all of those categories that are on the screen, and we aim to do one, two, or all of the above. So transformational change at pace. This is looking at new things that we've not seen before. It could be quantum computing, as I say, secure 3D printing, but doing it in a quick, fast manner, rather than the standard procurement CAD/MID cycle, which, as Joe alluded to previously, can be very difficult to infiltrate, and then once you're in, it's difficult to get around the wheel. So we're set up to try and optimize this process. Constructive disruption, so knowing when something within our organization doesn't quite fit right with how it should be. This could be a systematic problem, whether we're going through too much processing and paperwork and cutting out the middleman, so that we can actually get to seeing the technology in its native environment, proving that concept, and showing the key decision makers within the organization, those that have their hands on the levers, what we should be doing. Because at the end of the day, as Joe says again, the MOD is a large organization, and it's about getting the most important points across those that can influence. And then finally, the base layered approach to technology. So this is looking at not just putting a band-aid on the top of something that's already broken. And that links back as well to constructive disruption. So boiling it right down to what the technology offers, and not just bolting it on as a side on. So take virtual reality, for example. It's about deriving the value from what virtual reality offers, not over gamifying things, proving it at the most base case. Don't overthink it. Make sure that it does what it says on the tin. Next slide, please, Brandon.
Let's see. I feel like it still lags.
Yeah,
Has it changed?
Not yet. I can feel it coming on.
There it goes.
Sorted. So taking all that and putting it together into a project, and as a scout, I will lead projects with secondees from within the organization, those facing the problem, and liaise with companies that have solutions to those problems. And what I seek to drive throughout my projects is, one, it should show a value chain. So it shouldn't just be an all or nothing punt at providing a solution. So going from 0 where we've got nothing and 100 being the final solution. We like to break it down so that we produce value throughout. So even if we get halfway through the project and it falls over, for example, we've still moved further than where we started. We're not banking on it being an outright success all the way to the end, because at the end of the day, taking the bets that are safe doesn't change the organization a huge amount. So showing that value chain all the way through. 2, it should be able to be explained easily. So big sciencey, techie words that the SMEs within small startups and companies that deal with it on a day-to-day basis, we need to be able to boil it down to fairly simple language in order to get the point across. And that may have been part of the reason why Joe and Crypto Labs with the quantum world may have struggled, because those that were receiving the pitches and the proposals just didn't understand the technology and what it could offer. They go quantum and that's it, and everyone's got their own version of the truth. So making sure it's boiled down to simple language so that we can get the message across to those that are able to make the decisions. And then finally, obviously we are providing for defense, one of a number of security related government departments, and everything needs to be secure by design. So you're not getting down the road and trying to provide a solution and then having to think about security at the back end. So this can be end-to-end encryption. This could be as simple as 2-factor authentication. Just making sure that is baked in from the start can be some real pain points to try and retrofit it. I mention it not to scare people off, but as a route for getting to larger proposals and development, it needs to be thought of. And if you've got a new way of doing security, we'd be happy and be all ears. And it's about proving that as well. So those are the 3 things that I look for in a project. And if someone can tick all those boxes, then we're starting to get there. And my job is to work through with the company and with those that are facing the problem to enable that technology to get to the place that it needs to. If you just go to the next slide, please, Brandon. It's just a wrap up. So I'll be one of the assessors with these proposals coming in. So when I'm looking at the proposals as in the guidelines, it'll state that we're looking to assess it on things like desirability. So do users want it? Feasibility, can it be done? And viability, how much time and resource will it cost? And I hope from my presentation I'll be able to get across the fact that at the end of the day, we are simple human beings like the rest of us, and we want the best for the organization, just like everyone else. And getting that cool and niche technology into the hands of the users is what we do best. And as a potential exploitation pathway after International Space Pitch Day, I'm keen to derive, as I say, the value chain, making sure it's simple and security baked in from the start. And I am happy to take any questions when they come in to do with the MOD. And if anyone has anything to add on that, I'm all ears. So thank you for allowing me to get the J-Hub's message out there. Brandon.
Great, Chris. I think we actually do have some time, and some questions did come in between the last presentation and yours, and they're directed at J-Hub. So I think it would be timely to possibly get some of these in. So the first question we have is, does J-Hub see themselves as a route to find an MOD champion for technologies This is a challenge to non-defense startups and is key to getting a funding route.
Yes. So we are often wheeled out sometimes, you know, as the innovation cell, we are wheeled out as those that are leading the way when it comes to accepting disruptive technologies. And as a route for further funding, yes, you know, we don't have a specific remit. We aren't put in a box and this is our left and right of art. We are encouraged and empowered to go out there and engage across the world, not just within the UK. So let me just read the question to see if I've answered that. So do JHub seems has a route to as a route to find a champion for technologies? That's a difficult one, I suppose, because we operate within the MOD. So I would argue that we are champions for technologies. This is a challenge that's not key to getting the funding group. So we've worked with all sorts. We've worked from a madman in his shed with an idea, and now he's got a company of 50, 60 people, all the way through to your large standard primes. And we're keen to see the best technologies out there. I'll leave it at that so that we can go through and answer a couple of other questions as well.
Great. No, I think that's great, Chris. I particularly wanted to ask that question because it seemed really relevant to what you were talking about, and I didn't want to lose the momentum of the message that you were trying to get across for JHub. So some of the other questions we'll definitely leave for the end, but thank you so much for answering that, and thank you so much for your presentation.
No problem. Thank you, Brandon.
And I think this is a really good segue for what you were talking about as far as, you know, how you scout innovation, what the JHub looks for, and how do you feel that that technology is now ready to be introduced into MOD and for any key projects? So with that, I think that's a really good segue to bring Dr. Hawks from BM&T on. So if you could please open your camera and unmute yourself. So I think this is the perfect opportunity for now to you to take the helm.
Great. Thank you very much. And thanks for having me and including me on this panel. It's been really, really interesting. And I've identified with everyone who spoke, not only from the Common Mission Project, which is a startup in the UK, but also our enterprise side, BM&T, which is a startup in the UK. So I'm going to talk about the Hacking for MOD program, which, if you think about it as an innovation pipeline, we're on the very left-hand side. So we are way before some of the things like crypto labs. We are at student teams who are validating problems in the MOD. So I will just share my screen. Is that working?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I was asked to talk a little bit about transition confidence, which I can do from the perspective of being in a student team and running the Hacking for MOD program. So Hacking for MOD is a university program. It's a master's assessed module. And it is around 10 to 12 weeks, and it takes a team of 4 to 5 master students. And over the course of a term, they learn and apply lean startup principles towards solving a defense or security problem. The course originated at Stanford University in 2016 and was really the brainchild between Steve Blank, Pete Newell, who is the former director of the Rapid Equipping Force in Iraq as a colonel, and Joe Felter, who is most recently the Defense Assistant Secretary for Defense for South Asia and now back at Stanford as an academic. And the reason that they got together to think about this was really trying to engage a population of declining numbers of engaging with the military, with defense, with the government overall, and governmental programs, but also trying to pull in fresh thinking and really trying to solve the government problems at the pace of a startup. So trying to inject that skill set. So the first class at 2016 was a huge success. And from there, it's grown into a nonprofit in the US called Hacking for Defense. And it is in 41 US universities. And we've partnered with the National Security Innovation Network out of the Department of Defense, which is their accelerator, to deliver it to 50 universities by the end of next year. So it's a really popular program. The MOD got in touch with us several years ago and was interested in this program, launching it here. So we launched last summer at King's College London, and we've run subsequent courses. Our goal is to get into 24 universities in 4 years, so that every term in a good representation of UK universities, we are putting students to the test and having them validate crucial defense and security problems, so that when they go to places like J-Hub, there's a rising confidence level of actually buying something that the end user needs and that they're going to use, because that really is an innovation, right? Getting a solution that solves the actual problem. What I found in defense is that there's a lot of the requirements, traditionally and in the US, shape what the problem is or shape the solution and then try to fit it into a problem. And we're disrupting that space, because what we're doing is we're methodology agnostic. And we are problem obsessed and solution blind, because the tech exists. And you have people like Joe earlier who shows that there are PhDs who are commercializing their research and becoming very successful, and that technology will exist. But if we don't validate the problem, then we're wasting our money and we're wasting our investment. So along an innovation pipeline, you can call it whatever you like, but we call it an innovation pipeline. Hacking for Mod sits very squarely in the source, curate, and entering into the validate stage. What I've noticed in the UK is that incubation and experimentation are really robust. There's a lot of investment into it, but then there's a lot of difficulty in transition. And our argument, or kind of our position, is that that transition is really where you set the stage for transition, is really in sourcing and curating your problems and being able to validate the problem. So I'll just go back. The student teams will, within the first 5 to 6 weeks, validate a problem. So it's a flipped classroom approach. So they have to do 10 interviews a week over the term. So they're doing 100+ interviews. They're building ecosystems around the problem. Every team has an industry mentor and a government problem sponsor who experiences or owns the problem. And so the first 5 to 6 weeks, they will validate the problem, which 99% of the time is different from the original problem statement that the problem sponsor has. And in the remaining weeks, they start to identify solution pathways. And what they're forced to engage with is the deployment of their solution. So what would it actually take to get their solution into transition? So it's understanding what are the procurement and acquisition pathways? Who are the senior leaders that I need to get buy-in and from support? What authorities exist? The key resources, the key activities that I need to do. That is qualitatively different. Transitioning within defense is qualitatively different than transitioning in industry. And so when we talk about innovation in defense, oftentimes I hear a lot of, moving these Silicon Valley methods and just dropping them into the defense space. And what we found at Hacking for Defense and Hacking for MOD is that doesn't work. And you have to augment them for the dual use aspect of it, but you have to augment them for how a bureaucracy works and how a transition will be successful. So the observations that I've had of doing business with the MOD, that I've worked with student teams that sometimes will go on to form startups around their problem area, or they'll just kind of go on with their lives and they'll leave their MVP or their market research with their government problem sponsor. And this is what I always push the teams, and I push myself to answer when I'm trying to sell Hacking for Mod in the government or BMNT, is what problem am I solving and why do they care? So if a lot of times I spoke with a student team today that came to me and had this great proposal for partnership, and I asked, well, what problem are you solving? And if you can't answer that, then I think you have to start again, and you have to really understand who are your beneficiaries and who are your customers. And for what we've heard of today in Starburst, they're much more ahead of the game, and so they'll understand the answers to those questions. The space that I'm working in is in that very kind of idea, even pre-seed stage, where these student teams are trying to come out and maybe be a fledgling company and look at people like DASA or J-Hub potentially to get some money, or even with the NSTIF. But they really have to answer the question of what problem they are solving and why does the customer, so the person buying it, care, and why would the beneficiary, the end user, and sometimes they're the same, why would they hug the student team if they solve their problem? And that's what we kind of boil it down to. So transition confidence. So in thinking about this, what we do is we're really setting up the platform for things like J-Hub and DASA and other frontline command innovation that are participating in our program, because transition is determined between sourcing and incubation. I mean, there's a whole nomenclature around transition, starting off with the Valley of Death. and going on from there. And it's really difficult. And what we found in our enterprise business is it's being able to align, to understand your IRL, but being able, crucially, to align your TRL with the adoption readiness level. And we've defined the adoption readiness level as a combination of some IRL levels and specific adoption readiness levels. So understanding when to transition, we've also found with our government customers, understanding that has been something that has been missing, that we've been working with them, and understanding when these align. So just to go through them, when we look at a adoption readiness level scale, as you would an IRL or a TRL, we have the solution mission fit. So again, what problem are you solving, and what validated end user feedback do you have? Then adoption readiness level is validating the commitment. So is your customer motivated and committed to solving this problem? And one of the questions to Chris Middleton was, hey, are you going to find senior leaders that would give us the buy-in that we need? And it's being able to understand who owns that problem, and are they committed and motivated, and do they have the authority to implement a solution? In Hacking for MOD, when we take problem sponsors, we ensure that that problem sponsor has the influence to implement a solution if the student team comes up with an MVP. I apologize, you can hear my 8-month-old screaming in the background. The second adoption readiness level is having validated resources. So do you have the necessary resources to develop and test your prototype, whatever level fidelity it is, or maybe your product? And then matching that with an investment readiness level of validating the organization's needs. So whose buy-in is essential, and what authorities and acquisition are identified that you need? And this is, we find, the hardest aspect for the student teams to get over. But I also find, because we mentor student teams in going into defense, this is something that they really struggle with. And I think also in the questions, people were talking about the engagement with procurement and acquisition authorities. Our position is you don't need to buy faster. You need to be buying kit or capabilities or solution for a problem that you know you have, and also a problem that you know that the end user is going to use. So desirability is not just about whether the end user wants it, it's whether about the senior leader wants it. Because if the end user wants it, but the senior leader doesn't want it, then you don't have a viable problem, right? You just have a good idea or an impossible project. So I think part of it is understanding the alignment of what you need in order to transition, and kind of following along what we use a tool called the Mission Model Canvas. I know Jake is really familiar with it, but it's a tool adapted by Alexander Osterwalder and Steve, I'm sorry, I'm screaming in my ear. Alexander Osterwalder, Steve Blank, and Pete Newell, to really build a tool for mission-driven organizations, for bureaucracies to be able to innovate at speed, and to understand what will it take to get my problem through the transition. And when you're at that point, understanding when is it right to transition, and really having a good grasp on that adoption readiness level. So I will just wrap up with a quick status of where we are in the UK in terms of hacking for MOD. So we are in 4 universities this year. This autumn, we're running 16 defense and security problems through the course. In January, we are in 4 universities, and by December next year, we'll be in 10 universities. So we are scaling at the pace that we intended. We secured funding from the MOD, and I'll just empathize and sympathize with Joe, that it was, harder than giving birth to my son to get money out of the MOD. So I understand I think there's also a knowledge disconnect between some of the innovation frontline commands and even J-Hub, and sorry, Chris, until you've actually transitioned something within the government, until you've actually gotten money out of the government, it can be really difficult to understand what startups are going through to do that. So having that understanding to us has been a force multiplier into being able to scale the Hacking for Mod program, but also being able to build a business, an enterprise business here in the UK. So I will stop there for any questions, or if you're interested in get in touch and want to have a chat, then please do email us. And just thank you again for Brandon for having us and for the invitation.
Great. Thank you so much, Ali. It was a pleasure to have you on. It was great to hear you speak about what's happening in the UK with Hacking for Ministry of Defense and all the great projects that you guys are working on. So again, thank you for that. let's see, I think we should push through and get to the open Q&A at the end of the webinar. I know that there's still a few unanswered questions, but I also believe that after hearing Ali speak as far as what is happening with the progress that's being made with their program, as well as hearing all the previous speakers before, it's kind of building on this story. And I think it would be a really good portion now to bring in Space Applications Catapult and from their perspective, basically talk about how they work with the MOD to make sure that these startups are finding the right resources, and just like their name says, they're being catapulted into success in working with the government. So with that, I'll bring Saad on. So if Saad, if you could turn your video and mic on, please.
Excellent.
And hopefully I gave a good enough intro on what Space Applications Catapult does.
That's perfect. Thank you very much. And on the call, I will ask my colleague who runs our product commercialization to also participate at some point and provide a presentation. Thank you so much for having us and for this wonderful opportunity to participate. By way of intro, my name is Saad Humoud. I am Jordanian. I've been living in the UK for the past 10 years. Before that, I was based in Washington, DC, getting my degree in finance. I moved to London, where I began working in project finance in the aerospace and defense sector, specializing in offsets and liquidating obligations on behalf of major defense contractors. And from that experience, I was exposed to the space sector, and I wanted to join and make a career out of it. I resigned, did my MBA, and I decided to join the Satellite Applications Catapult. I will begin by providing a quick intro on what the Catapult is, and then we'll transition to my colleague David, who will provide some information about the kinds of services we provide to our ecosystem. Back in 2011, the UK government asked the question, how does the UK support up-and-coming sectors? How does the UK can ensure it has a place in the world in the up-and-coming sectors? They went about identifying 11 of them, from renewables, smart cities, space, semiconductors, and they decided that for each of those industries to create a center within an ecosystem that is tasked with developing and supporting each of those industries. The Satellite Applications Catapult is tasked with developing the UK space sector. We are based in Harwell campus, which is in Oxfordshire. We are part of a massive UK space community in a campus. And for the past 5-6 years, we have been operating internally and also globally, supporting UK startups gain a stronger foothold and identifying projects globally where they can participate in and gain experience. We have a number of projects ongoing around the world. So far, we've done, I think, around 500-600 projects, all the way from Latin America to Asia, and we have much bigger ambitions. Part of our responsibilities is also to attract businesses operating in the space sector into the UK and to create opportunities for them to benefit from this thriving ecosystem, from our strong relationships around the world and from the great opportunities that the UK government provide for UK based companies, specifically in terms of funding. And we have a track record of a good relationship with the government, where we are able to bid on projects and request funding, of which we are able to include a lot of our ecosystem from startups and SMEs to participate in those projects. And perhaps now my colleague David Kessel can provide further information on the kinds and types of services we offer to our community. David, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Saad, for that. Let me just take control of this so I can share a screen here. Yes, I work as a commercialization manager as part of the strategy team within the Catapult. And can I just check, can everybody see that shared screen now?
Looks good.
Okay, excellent. So yes, we as a Catapult, we have the remit of trying to make the space sector successful for the UK economy, to bring revenue, to help bring in new international players to come and base themselves here, and then to increase export at the same time. And to do that, we have a range of skill sets within a Catapult, from highly technical people with expertise in antenna design, or in expertise in Earth observation and image analysis, or geospatial awareness as well. But also people with commercial knowledge and commercial guidance. So we're creating ways to bring technology to markets in short term and help companies succeed in being completely economically sustaining. And to do that, we have a whole smorgasbord of offers. I'm just going to go through a dozen or so of the things, the sort of things that we do. So a lot of this focused around services, but also facilities we have within the Catapult, and beyond the Catapult into our network of connections, both regionally around the UK and into various other government and large organisations. So types of things we're looking at here would be kind of consulting, mentoring sessions, and if I start off looking at the sprints we organise, these are aimed for organizations who are trying to work out what to do, or if they can their business by making use of space technologies, satellite technologies. They have ideas, but they're not quite sure if they've got the right technology, if they fully understand the technology, if they've thought of all the potential applications. And we end up potentially being quite harsh during some of these periods, really testing out not just their technical thoughts, but how they see their business models developing, right down to a level of perhaps looking at their sales channels, whether they're looking at going directly to pilots, how they're looking at the long term, what the purpose of their business is going forwards. We work at higher levels as well. So I'd mentioned we've been involved in many projects, and we still have lots of projects going, both UK and internationally, in many different nation states. And we get involved in bringing early stage companies and large companies into those projects, often being very lightly involved ourselves as kind of a thin prime idea. And in that way, we help develop corporate partnerships, how organizations would work together, whether a number of large corporates who may have competitive barriers that we could help smooth, or whether small organizations who are looking to get involved with a large corporate, we can help with those sort of relationships going forwards. And so some of the projects there we've been involved is everything from Earth observation in terms of looking at flooding control, to futures of manufacturing in space, to flatbed antenna design. So very different types of projects, but involving large organizations as part of the mix. We have programs that focus on rapid commercialization. So that's very much short, sharp workshops, looking to come together in some ways similar to sprint activities, but with slightly different and more customized agendas, shall we say. And in the end, a lot of this work, I said there's a dozen or so courses and facilities we use, but we do in the end mix and match these to meet the requirements of the organization that might be looking to land in the UK, for example. If I move over to some of our facilities as well, so you get a flavor of more of the range of the things we can actually do for organizations. We have a quite sophisticated cloud, which is designed around image analysis and enables, because you've got very large data files here, now enables you to do your data processing on the same physical hardware as the data sets are. So it enables you to fight high performance analysis of data sets. And we're into that recently. There's a new Novasar, which is synthetic aperture radar data set on there. Antenna testing facilities. So we have both a near range and a far range antenna testing system that organizations who are particularly into hardware design can come in and use. We also merge many of these things together in some ways. So we have a disruptive intervention centers, which are facilities for fully testing potential space payloads. So that can be everything from doing so they involve clean rooms, RF testing facilities, shake and bake facilities. And it may be for prototyping components will end up in space, all the way through to having something that's really ready to go up and be tested in a space environment, a combination of hardware and software perhaps, or pure hardware components, new designs or integrations of designs. We run a full operation center. So we can run space missions from the catapult. And at the moment we have clients in there looking at debris collection, for example. We also have a downlink system. I talked about connectivity, and ubiquitous connectivity is one of the key satellite applications, and we have particularly access and control over downlink segments.
David,
also,
sorry, real quick. This is Brandon. I love the fact that you guys are covering like how much resources is offered by Space Applications Catapult. If possible, I would like to target it down, and either you or Saad talk more about the international aspect and the international flavor of what you guys specifically do for companies that are coming from outside the UK.
Yep.
And how you work with them.
Okay, so I'll pass to Saad in a second, but all of these facilities are designed to encourage UK companies to take their first, non-UK companies that are coming into the UK, US companies, for example, to come and make their first steps into the UK. So they're all facilities that are specifically designed to help any businesses land and integrate into the UK ecosystem around the space sector in a practical way. And I'm interested. We happen to be called a Satellite Applications Catapult rather than a Space Applications Catapult, on the basis that it's more about practical uses of real things that can create commercial value today, whereas space can sometimes be seen as off into the distance and exploring Mars rovers and science experiments. So we're absolutely about helping businesses land in the UK and interact with the rest of the government and non-governmental infrastructure that is the UK space sector. So that's really, these facilities are all about landing in the UK and then springboarding from there, using ourselves and our networks of connections. And ourselves is essentially an organization that's partly government funded and partly self-funded, with an objective of making the UK space sector very successful and growing. So as I started by saying, our mixture of skills is diverse and available for people to come and test themselves against, whether it's commercial skills, whether it's being criticized for, or criticizing business models, or looking at technical issues and helping to solve those. But we try to be very easy to work with. We're a smallish organization, and we tend to customize what we do to meet what our potential clients need, and signpost them in good directions for what in our experience is going to work best for them in landing in the UK.
Perhaps you can shed more light on our latest exciting project, or where we want to land Lockheed into our DISC facilities. So perhaps you can also highlight more about DISC and what Lockheed is looking to achieve through our support in the UK.
Sorry, Sarge, you're breaking up a bit there. Maybe I should pass back to you to take on from here. Would that be okay?
Absolutely, yes. And if everyone can hear me at the moment, we managed to attract a wide range of companies into the UK due to our strong relationship in the UK ecosystem and strong relationship within the government, specifically with the Home Office and the Department of International Trade, who represent our interest abroad. So what I'm trying to say is that through our contacts, we are able to customize projects that UK-based companies are able to take advantage of abroad, hence gaining investments and experience. Those are the kinds of perks we are able to facilitate and channel into our ecosystem. And being based in Harwell allows everyone to become part of the community. So companies like Lockheed and Raytheon, who are now looking to move a facility within their space in the UK, are now moving very close to the catapult in one of our facilities to take advantage of the kinds of things that also David just mentioned. We also have a variety of projects abroad in the Middle East and Asia and LATAM, which provide exposure for UK-based companies to participate in projects, to look for investments, and to co-develop ideas. Because we act as a window to Europe, to Asia, to the Middle East, and companies do find an advantage in those kinds of opportunities. This has been a very brief summary, but I will wrap up and ask everyone who is interested to move in the UK to get in touch. We have teams who are able to support and able to provide all kinds of help necessary for you to set you up with an office, with a team, create introductions, support and funding, whatever is needed. The Catapult is here to facilitate that. Thank you very much.
So David, thank you so much for offering that perspective and sharing the resources that Space Applications Catapult shares with companies of interest, especially international companies. we can't stress how important resources like that are for companies that are trying to come and work in the UK and with the Ministry of Defense. So very valuable information. So thank you. All right. With that, let's open it up for some more questions. And let's see. So this one goes back to Chris at J-Hub. Chris, do you have an idea of the kind of TRL you guys are looking at?
I seen that question, and I've been kind of sitting on it for a little bit. TRL can be difficult to work with sometimes, as Ali talked about the Valley of Death. We don't like working with TRL specifically. You know, it's good as you can put things into broad buckets. You can say that it's definitely an idea, or if it's definitely not quite mature enough for full scaling, and then full scaling. But we don't rate sticking things in small stovepipes, so saying this is a definite 6 and this is a definite 5 or this is a definite 7. So we're open. We've worked with everything from 4 all the way through to 9. There's not a specific, you know, we take it on at 6, because then you're just pigeonholing yourself. So I hope that answers the question. The fact that we're open for ideas. Really.
No, that's great. Thank you. Another question, and this one's more for the entire panel and for their different specialties that they have. And so I'll open it up to whoever wants to chime in. But how does this panel feel about specialist system integrators in this space? Particularly, this gentleman is saying, my business utilizes existing or emerging tech to overcome defense initiatives. How does the MOD, DOD see subject matter experts like my business? Jake, maybe that's a good question for you to start with.
Sorry, just turn my screen back on. So this is a panel. How does the panel feel about specialist system integrators in this space, utilizing existing or emerging technology to overcome defense initiatives? I feel great about it. Very simply put, innovation is not simply a new technology that's never been discovered before. Sometimes it's approaching a problem a different way. I see this time and time again in defense, where we pour lots of money from the government into federally funded labs and prime contractors who are not able to solve a problem that we have. And some entrepreneur, smart engineer, scientist, entrepreneur can come out of there and solve it with a completely different approach, or purely because of their persistence and willpower. So I think the application of knowledge in a lot of different ways is valuable. So we are interested in this program in all sorts of solutions for you guys to bring forward to solve the problems that we have. So hopefully that's helpful, but I think it's great what you're doing. And I think that we could receive some value from you looking at some of our challenge areas.
Great. Thank you for that. Let's see, another question. Sometimes baking in robustness into a design thoroughly can add huge costs and time to a startup, which can delay POC. How can this balance be made?
I think that's alluding back to what I was mentioning. So it's not about having the final product fully, or even the proof of concept fully secure, fully accredited. It needs to be of a minimum standard. So with the Ministry of Defence, if we are touching anything, or there's any MOD identifiable information, we need to know where that's going and what it's doing. And that fundamentally is the question that needs answered, is if we are putting information or trusting MOD information with small startup, medium businesses, large businesses. We need to know that the information that we are providing, if it's not open source, we need to know where that information is going. So it doesn't mean that there has to be a full setup and protocols to fulfill it. We just need to know that it is being responsibly handled. I think that kind of is alluded to in the question. I appreciate that sometimes that can bake in delays, but if it means slowing up the proof of concept rather than slowing up the overall potential, because if it's not done right from the start, getting something in through the door first is easier than trying to get the elephant through the keyhole. Get in through the door and then grow. That's where I try to drive at.
I might be able to add a bit of context into that, Brandon, from a startup perspective. When we did our POC, early stage ideas, but we clearly had a roadmap of where we wanted to be. And that roadmap allowed us to have and you can bake this into your proposal to say we want this to be tested. In our case, it was tested to the compliant requirement of NIST, but we also want it to be tested to make sure that our technology was quantum. So we baked it into our proposal. Third party like universities who had the equipment, the technology to do that testing, that validation. But the process to validate the technology has to be there from the start. I think that's what Chris was saying, is that you think about it as a process. You're not going to do everything. It's impossible, especially for a short period of time. But what it does do, it allows you to thought through how you're going to get there, in our case, to be quantum safe. But throughout the process, what you'll discover is new learning. In our case, it's a new patent. So you don't have to have all the answers. You just need to do what I said earlier, was to do that research. Ask, what exactly does Chris want? What exactly is this allied accelerator, the full context and full content, and what around that. So you don't need to have all the answers all in one go.
Great. No, I definitely agree with all the points that were made on that one. Anyone else from the panel want to offer inputs on that one? Okay. And then I guess it goes back to one last question is, are you guys truly only looking for cutting edge, or are you, as Jake said, innovation is not always new. Sometimes it's, taking things that people are really good at or have matured to a certain state and offering those as solutions. So I guess just a reiteration, it does not have to be cutting edge. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're correct, Brandon. Sometimes the most effective projects have been the ones that are just taking and repurposing things that are TRL 9 and doing it in a slightly different manner, and just optimizing it for a defense need rather than doing something completely new, because then the technology is understood, you know what you're getting, and it's then just the challenge, the organizational challenge internally, and that's part of my role, is to help the adoption within the organization. So yeah, not just the cutting edge latest bit of technology that's coming out of a PhD or from a university, but all the way through to just the basics and doing that right.
Yeah, let me add to that. I'll just add that we don't care as much about the technology as we do about the problems. We don't care how cool, how advanced, how cutting edge it is, if it doesn't solve a problem. And I have been close to the end user flying on a plane on the other side of the world, listening to one of our operators who was just thrilled about this new solution that they had. And it was 1990s technology. And here I was an engineer, out of school, that was, aware of all these great technical solutions coming through. And I was shocked. I thought, this is 20, 30-year-old technology, but it solved his problem. And that was so much more important. Too often we have people pitching, look at this technology, look how great it is, how advanced, and how much, and it works. And then it goes back to, what Dr. Hawk said, can you tell me about the problem it solves? And they fall apart, it breaks down, they're not sure. And if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, start a company, that is where you're going to need to get across, and that's where you're going to break down if you can't do that. So I would highlight and emphasize that over the last couple of weeks, we've had some webinars to introduce some of these problem areas. We're not looking for people to comprehensively solve these. We're just trying to tell people, look, this is what day to day our people are experiencing and struggling with. If you have solutions, whatever they may be, that could bring value to and solve those, we are going to be jumping out of our seats and excited to see those. Whether it's, the new AI applications, or whether it's another solution that somebody tried before but you've figured it out, right? Or maybe you've tied two to do with the actual application that you understand now. So to me, it's all about the mission, it's all about the problems, and I am excited about just the excitement I see from companies that can solve problems. So hopefully that's helpful.
Can I just chime in again? Yeah, exactly. It's about, and AI specifically can be quite difficult to broach with those that haven't been familiar with it. Take AI as an example. You end up getting senior generals turning around and can we do AI to that? And sometimes AI is not the answer. Sometimes it's just a standard macro on an Excel spreadsheet. But that's in constant tension with, if it sounds cool, it's probably going to, it's easier to sell if it sounds cool. That I think is a bit of a misnomer. If you can give me something that I can go and take down to a user in a week, and just trial it, and as I say, create that value chain. It's not the final product. It's not the final, answer to the problem. But if it's something that I can go down and take into the field and test and learn, and then come back to you, that's what's key for us. But it's all about the education piece. And if you can't, don't pitch and say something we want to fly and do a sensor on a drone if you can't just put it on a table and let it work. A building block approach really helps.
Great. No, thank you so much, Chris and Jake, for that input. Overall today, just to kind of bring all this together, today we've been able to host a different amount of speakers from all different aspects of the startup ecosystem, everything from government agencies to investors, to startups, and to all parallel organizations that are really helping the startups gain their footing and their traction within the United Kingdom and helping to work with the Ministry of Defense. So I think overall the picture that's painted is that, one, investment is happening for these companies, and it has been happening for a while, and it's only accelerating. Even in our current, state of the world with COVID and people working remotely, we haven't seen a slowdown in aerospace and defense. Things are moving at a furious clip. And, an accelerator like this pretty much shows you that stakeholders within government agencies and with allied governments are really pushing to bring innovation to the warfighter and leverage those dual use cases. Second, the transition confidence that we talked about. We have to find those technologies that are able to start from your MVP and scale up to a prototype or something that can be demonstrated with the customer in order for them to, gain those, the feel-good feelings, the warm fuzzies, if you will, of bringing that technology into their programs. And then, of course, the international considerations. What's necessary for you as a company in another place of the world to come work in the United Kingdom? How do you go about doing that? What are the initial steps? The checklists, if you will. So hopefully this last hour and a half, almost 2 hours, have helped you get a better understanding of exactly what is needed to be able to do that successfully and offer you those shortcuts, if you will. The homework has been done for you, and everything now is basically telling you, submit your idea. All ideas are welcome. And yeah, I mean, Chris or Jake, especially, if you have any final remarks, please contribute to it.
Thanks, Brandon. Yeah, I just want to add my thanks to all the participants today, both as panelists on the workshop and those who have tuned in. I hope we'll recognize just the wealth of knowledge and experience that we have across the people that have presented today, that have resources and experiences themselves to help and highlight, how companies can be successful here inside of the UK, specifically in space, accessing that market, but also working with defense and solving those mission-driven problems. I actually want to just comment on something that Joe said earlier when he was told no in the beginning. I myself as well, and I think a lot of people have been accustomed to expect the answer no. And why is that? It's because no is easy from any customer. And the successful startups, entrepreneurs, companies that make it and are successful is because they are persistent, and they learn how to respond, how to pivot, how to iterate, to be able to understand, how to solve that problem. So I'm grateful for everybody who's willing to be persistent and keep working, even when they still know, because I've experienced that as well. Excited about this program. One thing that I want to kind of conclude with as well is just in emphasizing that the panelists that you've heard from today, this was, very brief introductions, inside of just under 2 hours from a lot of different people. It should introduce to people and participants here some of the resources, some of the experts and mentors in these areas that can help navigate a company, navigate who has, solutions for challenges within the UK and space. It's an exciting opportunity. This is a part of the International Space Pitch Day program, that's delivered by this accelerator. We want to see companies pitch at our International Space Pitch Day with an opportunity to walk away with those contracts on behalf of the UK MOD, as well as the United States Air Force and Space Force. Before that, if you have solutions that are relevant to the, across a lot of different technology areas, registrations deadline is next week on the 19th, followed by proposal submission deadline on the 2nd of September. From those, we're looking at inviting 15 companies to pitch at our pitch day. But what I also want to emphasize is before that actual pitch day, we're going to run a couple of different design sprints. And this is where we will bring dedicated resources to those companies. We will have end users to talk about the problem areas, to give iterative one-on-one feedback with companies. We'll bring in people that will be able to talk about those business models, that investment readiness, how to raise capital. We'll bring in people to help you understand what that pathway looks like into working with those defense organizations. And we will bring in people and resources that will help you understand how you can navigate some of those international hoops. If you are outside the UK and the US, but you want to access that market and those customers, it's a difficult thing to do, but we are bringing those resources. So while it can be difficult, people have been successful. Joe's a great example of that. We've got resources there, but what we want to emphasize more than anything is that we get it. We recognize that there are emerging solutions outside of the US and UK, outside of what we're aware of, that are being developed at exciting rates and solving problems. And those solutions are relevant to the problems that we have. So we want to be a better customer, better partner. We want to work with you and to reach those solutions. And we want to help you understand what that path looks like, so to maximize your success as well as our success in solving those problems. So I want you to be aware of those dates, be aware of those kind of key parts of the program that are upcoming, and hopefully we'll see solutions and proposals submitted by a lot of different people wherever you are throughout the world.
Great, thank you, Jake.
Totally agree, Jake. From my perspective, let us be the ones that decide whether it's fit for the organization. Don't feel the need to try and answer all the questions yourself. Let us be good at what we're good at, and we'll let you be good at what you're good at. Because that way we can come up with the best solutions, and let's just get as many proposals as we can get, because ultimately we don't want to potentially miss the next game-changing technology. So even if it's just a thought or an idea, I would encourage you to get a proposal put together with the help that's provided by Jake and Brandon and the team that we've been able to assemble, and get that proposal in, so that we can start to look at it and expose those technologies to those that can make the decisions. Over.
Great, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Jake, for all your comments. Thank you,
Brandon,
panel.
sorry, can I just add one last bit? So we do have Starburst here, which we are part of. With this James here as well, from Seraphim. They've got Space Accelerator. We've got Alison as well for hacking for the MOD. All these, as well as DASA, all these opportunities to get your technology, your ideas into the sector. So, if you don't get through to the International Space Pitch Day, there are other things that you must look at. This is, one thing we talk about persistent. If one avenue doesn't work, just keep knocking. If you believe your idea, your technology works, fight for it.
Yeah, I would agree. Like Jake said, don't take no for an answer. No is the easiest thing to say, right? So with that, we definitely would love to see all ideas, no matter how out of left field they are, definitely get applied, or people submit those applications to the challenge. With that, real quick, I just want to share our upcoming webinars. So hopefully everyone can see my screen. So this is our International Space Pitch Day website, intlspacepitchday.com. Here you'll be able to find an overview of the program, the webinars. Most of you are already registered on here, but just in case you're not, the upcoming webinar is on Wednesday. So it's working with the US, working within the US and with the Department of Defense. That is on Wednesday at the same time. And then next week on August 20th, we have preparing for the submission, an Ask Me Anything type webinar, where anyone that has questions regarding their proposal submission will be able to ask those questions directly to the challenge stakeholders to help you better craft your response and your submission. So again, if you have any questions, go to that website. Hopefully it'll answer your question, but if not, there's also an email on there that you can ask any other additional follow-up questions that have not been answered, ada@starburst.aero. And please remember that just because you register on the Starburst website, you also must go to the DASA website right after, and it's on the same page. So you register for Starburst to be included in all of our information being pushed out for this. And then right after, you go to the DASA page and you have to fill out your supplier questionnaire for the registration deadline on August 19th. With that, last piece of information, Richard Homewood sends his apologies. He was desperately trying to join this call, but he got wrapped up in another meeting and was not able to join us. So if you had any questions for Richard Homewood at NSIF, please let us know and we will get those to him to then answer any questions that anyone posed. So again, he sends his apologies, and hopefully we'll get him into the next webinar related to how we can work with the UK, or even in the design sprints, as Jake was alluding to, for those companies once they're down selected. So again, thank you very much for your time this morning. We appreciate everyone's attendance, and we look forward to seeing you on Wednesday. Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone.